Brexit, the single word that has defined a decade of British politics. But what if I told you the vote to leave the European Union wasn't just about trade or laws? It was about something deeper, something personal, an identity crisis. In this video, we'll explore how a collective anxiety over national identity, who the English are, who they want to be, and where they are, drove one of the most consequential geopolitical shifts in recent history. Let's begin with a question. What does it mean to be English today? In the decades leading to Brexit referendum, a quiet transformation took place. Britishness began to fade, especially in England, replaced by a more assertive, more exclusive English identity. This identity was built around the idea of a sovereign, self-reliant nation. For many, the EU membership felt like the opposite of that, a threat to their way of life. And when people feel their identity is under siege, they don't just vote rationally, they vote emotionally. Brexit became a way to take back not just control, but self-definition. This brings us to the past. Many Leave voters weren't just looking forward, they were looking backward to the era of the British Empire and the belief that Britain was once the greatest power in the world. That sense of greatness, of being exceptional, didn't disappear. It lingered in the national imagination. So, it's no surprise that the idea of global Britain wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate attempt to resurrect that past. National identity isn't just about culture. It shapes how nations act. Brexit was, in part, a reaction to a long period of perceived decline, a need to restore pride. But this identity crisis didn't affect everyone equally. Older voters, especially those over 65, overwhelmingly backed Leave. Younger people, under 25, mostly chose Remain. The country didn't just split by opinion, it split by generation. Why? Because older voters grew up with stories of British greatness, of World War victories, of empire. For them, EU integration symbolized a gradual erosion of everything Britain once stood for. Meanwhile, younger generations felt European, cosmopolitan. Their world was one of travel, Erasmus, and openness. And it showed. While youth turnout was high, the demographic weight of older voters tilted the scale. What emerged was more than disagreement. It was a cultural divide over what Britain was and what it should become. We should bear in mind that nations are driven by their national narrative as much as by strategy, and, in fact, Brexit wasn't just about Brussels, but about England's self-image, the belief that it could stand alone, make its own rules, and reclaim its old place in the world. It was identity turned into foreign politics. But here's the problem. Brexit never really defined what Leave meant. Was it leaving the single market, ending freedom of movement, total regulatory independence? Some thought it meant becoming a global trading power. Others thought it meant closing borders. Still others hoped it would lead to economic renewal. Voters had different ideas, and so did their leaders. Those in power aimed for pragmatic deals, minimizing the damage of leaving while maximizing symbolic gains, while those who remained in opposition cried for treason and too little courage. But the referendum only said leave. It didn't say how. That ambiguity allowed the Leave coalition to grow large, but also meant that after the vote, disappointment was almost inevitable, because the vision was never unified and the reality could never satisfy everyone. After the vote, the UK began performing its sovereignty. It left the EU single market, signed trade deals with faraway nations, joined Pacific trade blocs, formed new military pacts like AUKUS. Each move signaled independence, but they didn't always deliver power. Without a seat at the EU table, Britain lost influence over European regulation and European politics. Trade friction increased, and most new deals brought only marginal gains. In geopolitical terms, the UK became more agile but less impactful. Its identity said global leader, but its leverage often said otherwise. So where does this leave Britain in 2025? On one side is a continued path of sovereign-first politics, doubling down on its Anglosphere ties, leaning into bilateral trade deals and deepening security cooperation with the United States, Australia, and the Indo-Pacific region. This course offers identity consistency and geopolitical alignment with traditional allies, but may reinforce Britain's relative isolation from its own continent. On the other side is a pragmatic re-engagement with Europe, not a reversal of Brexit, but a recognition that geographic, economic, and strategic realities demand closer cooperation. This could mean sectoral agreements, regulatory alignment, renewed involvement in security frameworks, and scientific or environmental cooperation. It would restore some influence and ease frictions, but would also require softening on the Brexit narrative. There is also a third, less stable path: strategic ambiguity, drifting between both spheres without a clear direction. That may appease domestic political divides in the short term, but risks diminishing Britain's voice in a global stage. The UK must now choose not only how it acts, but who it wants to act with. Its future depends resolving the tension between sovereignty and interdependence, between memory and reality. Caught between two visions, one of proud sovereignty and Anglosphere partnerships, and the other of pragmatic cooperation with Europe. Brexit didn't solve the identity crisis, it crystallized it. And as the UK navigates a turbulent world, the question isn't just where it goes next, but who it believes itself to be. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep sharp, critical, and informed.